The family of the late rapper Nipsey Hussle will head to trial in April over the custody of his 14-year-old daughter, Imani.
Yeah, the ongoing case will see Nipsey's older brother, Sam, and the family face off against Imani's mother, Tanisha Foster. Now, the family is seeking to officially gain guardianship of Imani, citing Foster's history of alcohol and drug issues as reasons for her being unfit to parent. Foster, however, has filed her own custody claim, stating financial limitations and a desire to maintain Imani's standard of living as reasons for her initial agreement. That trial will begin April 27th.
Now let's get into a story that raises concerns about privacy and civil rights. The NYPD filmed concert goers without their consent leaving a Drake concert at Manhattan's Apollo Theater, sparking concerns among privacy advocates. The department says the footage would only be used for a social media post, but people are still asking for it to be taken down. The Surveillance Technology Oversight Project, a group that focuses on privacy and civil rights, deemed the videotaping, quote, highly concerning, and demanded that the video be destroyed as attendees were being surveilled without their consent.
You gotta let people know what's happening. Yeah. I believe.
I mean, even when, there are professionals that are filming in public places, there's signage that says you're walking into an area where, filming will be taking place. It's, I think it's called a group consent or something like that.
Disclaimer.
And so the fact that they didn't have that and they were just filming people, I mean, why all of a sudden is NYPD filming folks coming out of a Drake concert? You're telling me that NYPD police officers don't got nothing better to do in the nation's largest city than to be outside the Drake concert filming concert goers? Were they trying to get into the Drake concert and they couldn't get in, and so they just stayed outside? But it is a little suspicious.
With all of this facial recognition and being wrongly accused. How many stories just the past week? Folks have been locked up and can't prove that they've been, wrongly accused. It's just
mistaken identity.
Mistaken identity is just too much going on. And then, of course, on the lighter side of that, if you dig into the comments, reasons as to why you might not want to be seen going in and out of a Drake concert, whether it be because you were there with somebody you had no business being there with, or you had no business being there yourself. So a lot's happening across the spectrum with this particular story, but you got to let folks know what's happening. Absolutely, it's called a disclaimer. You absolutely have to.
You know what I'm wondering? I'm wondering what the mayor thinks about this. When the mayor saw this story, what did he think? He's a former police officer himself, right?
And he's a pretty witted dude, kind of hip-hop
Did he think this was a
cat.
little strange? Did he think this was okay? I mean, and were those police officers on overtime? I mean, look, these are important questions, and I'm sure some of our soulmates out there may be digging into it.
Yeah, speaking of digging into something, 2 Chainz has made a shocking discovery in his home as a stash of cash hidden by his late father has been discovered. The rapper shared this discovery in a YouTube video, and as he is seen, look at there, running his hands through the bag of dollar bills, explaining how he discovered the stash while fixing a broken pipe in the basement. So like 2 Chainz was fixing the pipe, 2 Chainz. He actually had a complex relationship with his father, who passed away back in 2012 as he was preparing to release an album.
All right, Courtney, as 2 Chainz discovers a hidden cash stash, another rapper is facing financial troubles. According to reports, Chris Brown is facing a pretty large tax bill from the IRS. Court documents show that Brown was hit with a federal tax lien for a total of, get this, $4,044,596.76 in taxes. If these debts go unpaid, the government could move in to take Brown's Tarzana, California home and assets including his business. Chris Brown's team has not yet commented on this tax issue. However, it's not uncommon for rappers to run into tax problems. I would add it's not very uncommon for a lot of artists to run into tax problems while they're living and their estates once they're deceased.
Listen, I just saw a post, I don't know if it was, it had to be Chris maybe, of he does not have a closet, he has a room full of clothing. So if he just sort of kind of maybe like returned some of that clothing or maybe sold it or put it up for auction, he could probably take care of that bill. But you're right, these artists have to, really, watch it and take care of their money, and they become like machines, especially when you get into pop stars like a Chris. There's so many handlers involved, and so I can see how it can be challenging to stay on top of your finances. But when you hire people to do such, getting to a situation like this is pretty concerning. That's a lot of money, and it sounds like a lot of money over a number of years. So, again, is it just negligence and neglect, or are the people in his camp, his handlers, not handling their business in regards to what he would be paying them to do?
Yeah, and I think Chris Brown and artist aside, I think there are a lot of folks in our community that struggle with financial literacy. And sometimes we make the assumption that just because you've made a boatload of money or just because you might be famous that you know how to manage your money.
How to handle it, right?
You know how to run a business. You know how to engage in the proper oversight. And so let this be a cautionary tale to all of our soulmates out there that as we're entering into a new year, let's make sure we not just keep our eye on our finances, but let's sort of step up our financial literacy so we don't find ourselves in similar situations.
I hear you. I just can't wait to get to a level to whereas I might owe the government $4 million. I ain't got there yet. Let's shift focus from Chris and his money in the music industry to the world of sports, as the Houston Astros name a longtime scouting executive, man's name is Dana Brown, as their new general manager. This all comes after former GM James Click's contract expired after the team's World Series win. Brown previously served as vice president of scouting for the Atlanta Braves and for years and had a successful draft in 2019. Brown is now the only black GM in the game, and owner Jim Crane says, quote, "He's the perfect fit for us." Brown says he plans to continue building and developing players to sustain the team's winning success. That is great to see.
All right, despite the success and unity displayed on the field, a disturbing incident occurred off the field. Perpetrators hung a dummy of Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. from a highway bridge early Thursday, hours before the team's match against Atletico Madrid in the Copa del Rey. They used a black figure with Junior's name on it, tied a rope around its neck, and hung it from an overpass in Madrid, along with a banner with the words, "Madrid consumes real." The Black Brazil forward has complained on social media about being targeted more than once by racists since he came to play in Spain. Now, the message on the banner is often used by one of Atletico Madrid's ultra fan groups, though it denied being responsible for the display.
So he's been in the news a lot in regards to these racial attacks. And what I just don't understand, and I'm not a big soccer person, I know it's huge, especially overseas, is that most of the brilliance and the athleticism and the wins come from soccer players of color. And whether if they play for Europe, France, most of them come from Africa and they're of color. And so without most of these players, your teams wouldn't even be in position to play and or win. So I don't understand this racial backlash and this taunting and just these attacks. They're just dumbfounded to me. You wouldn't even have soccer teams if there was no Africa.
Yeah, and it's important that we see these acts of racism as interconnected. Look at what's happening in the athletic world, not just here at home, but abroad. Look at what's happening in our classrooms, not just here, but abroad. Look at what's happening with law enforcement, not just here, but abroad. And so when we talk about this sort of global movement for racial justice, this is another example of why that justice needs to touch the soccer fields of Spain as well.
Absolutely.
Still ahead, Black excellence in art.
Oh yeah, we'll introduce you to one young man who is defying all odds to do what he loves to do. You're watching Fox Soul's Black Report.